Okay, welcome to episode 6 of The End of Everything, a weekly podcast where we explore the latest technology, trends, and changes in this new digital age. Today we have a couple of special guests, don't we?
Yeah, two first ever guests.
This is a big moment for the podcast.
Again.
Yep.
Raising the level.
Yeah, if only they could see your hand gestures, that'd be so good.
Yeah.
So we have here Willams and Geoff Wright.
Hello.
Thanks for having us along.
Hey, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Two of our friends from our university.
Yeah. No, thanks for taking pity on us and joining us.
Anytime, boys, anytime. It's pretty easy.
So I thought, you guys would say like what you've been up to, like since you left uni, or like what your experiences in, been about.
So my name is Llyr. Since university, studying product design with these guys, I've travelled, worked in London as a furniture designer and maker and architectural model maker, and now I'm currently working as a stonemason / part-time artist.
Yep.
Being the starving artist.
Nice.
Yeah, nice.
Except it's still eating.
Yeah, you should drop your social media handles so people will follow it, because we have a big audience.
Yeah, what is it? At Llyr W Studio. Quite hard to
Spell clear.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's quite hard to just hear that. LLYR is Llyr, so
Naturally.
yeah.
Cool.
Rad. I'm Geoff Wright. Since uni, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, bit of a wild ride. Left uni and went straight into a small startup company, focused around leather goods, and also focusing on like local manufacture and local sourcing of materials. So definitely like big focus on locally made and sourced leather goods. And then from there I went over to Munich, where I did a short stint with a design firm there, mainly doing their main clients were in consumer electronics, but I did a lot of like trend and future focused idea building and design strategy and design thinking for them. From there I flew back to New Zealand and pursued my father's trade of being a painter, a house painter, not a flash painter on canvas like our friend here. And then went up to Auckland and did a thing called event design, which was a lot of spatial design. And then I have now landed myself down in Wanaka working for a company called Montreal, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff like R&D, product design, glove design, material, stuff, that kind of stuff.
I guess as well, like craft. Like, do you say that we're doing about craft?
No, we haven't actually said what we're actually focusing the episode on. But what we thought we'd do this week is ask the question, is this the end of craft? I suppose a good place to start that off is to say, what is craft?
Yeah.
What is craft? Yeah, that's it's
I mean, we were having this discussion a little bit last night in that we both said the word craft, but a couple of us had the different understanding of what that actually meant.
Yeah.
Or associated with.
You found that craft was a bit like arts and crafty and childish, didn't you?
Yeah, it's
the
very...
word is that.
It's very farmer's market, sort of Sunday market. Knitted dolls for children and, like bibs and things like that, where possibly there's not a lot of...
Tat, basically. Tatter.
Yeah, well...
Granny tat.
Yeah. I feel like that's where we're jumping straight into the meat of it, really. Where you're going, well, what is good and what is bad, and who decides that, and what is craft and what is tat, for want of a better word.
But that's like you were saying that like woodcraft and like all these amazing artists, like that's the thing that I think of when you say craft.
I think of the word craftsmanship and how hard it is to become a craftsman or something, and how you have to devote a lot of time to get better at a craft and hone the skills and get intimate with it.
Yeah.
Like, would you say stonemasonry is a craft of yours?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's why I view it like that. Because I have a respect for people who've done it centuries ago and how hard it is to do.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time doing it, and it doesn't just come overnight. It takes hours and hours and hours and hours of being taught, but also figuring out yourself how to actually connect with this material and manipulate it and understand it, but not necessarily theoretically, but with your body, or manipulating it with your hands.
So you're saying that craft is three-dimensional?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how I see it.
It's in that specific example, I suppose, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it necessarily has to be. It doesn't.
I always associate it with being, working with your hands, physical labour.
Like different to painting or something, which I guess is like to
Yeah, I mean, as far as a craft in those terms, yeah. But then there's the arts and crafts, which I would say is different.
Then that sort of leads you to the idea that if you do a craft, or if something is considered a craft, then possibly defining craft would be the fact that when you see something, you know it's made by that person. Because it's distinctively their style in the craft. You look at say a chair, and the legs are turned in a certain way, and you from afar and from without actually looking too deeply into the piece of furniture, you go, well, that is the craft of
You
blah,
can
blah,
see
blah.
the human influence in it. It's not like a piece of furniture made from MDF that's been machined and just slapped or put together in a production line. You can see the human influence of it. You can see the gestures, how they've interacted with it, maybe.
It's interesting as well, like you're talking about obviously your craft, like stonework as well. Like I wonder if it's something, it kind of obviously naively it looks simple. It's like, oh yeah, sweet, it's like carve a rock or whatever. Obviously it's really hard, but like I think maybe, I don't know if the simplicity of things is maybe part of it. I don't know, is it? But then again, I suppose you see crazy Japanese woodwork and stuff. You never look at that and go, oh, it's simple. But that's obviously super master level craftsman. But I also wonder how technology affects craft is pretty interesting as well. It's like these things that we haven't changed. Like how you do it is very similar probably to how people have done it for millennia, really.
Certain parts of it, yeah. I used to use a hammer and chisel, and I prefer it sometimes to do that because I can shape it better in certain circumstances. But then also we use grinders, and we have a diamond saw chainsaw for cutting through big bits of stone.
Yeah.
It's quicker, it's easier. You don't want to be... But there's these things you can use called a feather and hammer. So feathers you put into a stone at certain points and you split it by hitting it with a hammer. But it takes ages. It's not efficient to do that nowadays.
Economical, yeah.
So you still have these tools to help you.
I'm sure that sort of yin and yang or whatever, battle. But I bet that's present in so many crafts.
Yeah.
Woodwork and stuff. I wonder if there's people who are make boats and stuff. That we had to do it the old way, and then obviously there's all these new technologies which are better now. Which I wonder how people view it. Is that taking away from the craft? I wonder.
There's also that tension of we had the arts and crafts movement, which was very detailed craft, where it was all about how much time you can spend on a certain thing, whether it's a piece of wood around a door in a home, and now post Bauhaus, postmodernist phase, we're that's not seen as this. There's less value seen in that now.
Yeah.
People are actually, I just want a clean line.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, and that does bring it back to the question. There's architecture is a good one to look at because people, like you say, back in the day would make these beautiful homes that they put so much work into it, and then you look at them now and you're like, that's still an amazingly built thing, and it's 500 years old. But I wonder now with all of our modern architecture, how often do you see a building that's wow, this is so it might be a beautiful shape, but it's just there's no human input there. It's just you say clean lines and perfect, and it's kind of sad that all the sort of most impressive buildings or impactful buildings are aren't really being built now. There might be a bit of a generalization, but it's all just sterile and kind of just looks nice.
Yeah,
it's
efficiencies come into it too.
Yeah, I mean that is probably it. Really, it's
but I guess that's where my craft at the moment thrives because people like that human influence in the home. They don't have to have all of it made out of stone, but they
Yeah.
have certain panels that they're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's a point of difference in my home that looks crafty.
Yeah.
And I think, like, saying that the Renaissance period or whatever it was beauty through complexity.
Yeah.
Like, the more complex, the more sculptures that were on the facade of this building,
Yeah.
it meant the more time that went into it, and the more illustrious.
And that probably meant more value, right?
Yeah, the more money, the richer the person who built it. So it was like a status symbol. Whereas the status symbol of architecture these days is simplicity.
Yeah,
And it's
materiality.
it's the same with products, right? I mean, we all know how how difficult it is to create something simple. Just like in architecture, to create something that looks like it's made out of 3 blocks, it is really hard.
Yeah.
Your complex houses these days are your cedar wood panels, and actually they are quite bitsy,
Yeah.
So like it's kind of flipped on its head like that, hasn't it?
You have to explain your craft these days.
Mhm.
Someone will look at what you've made and they go, "What's special about it?"
Yeah.
Instead of like back in the day in the arts and crafts or Renaissance, you can look at it and it's immediate what is special about it. But now, if you looked at that same thing, you'd have to get the builder or the architect or the craftsman along, and they go, "Well, actually, it's a wood. It's imported. It's very rare, and it's got these qualities.
Yeah.
And this is how we've joined it. You can't see any of this stuff,
Yeah.
but it's there. So
Yeah, it's bizarre, right? It's like understated. But then again, like, if someone makes a super beautiful, working at Weta, where there's all these beautiful, beautiful sculptures, or that look beautiful, but it's carved out of foam by a machine.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it looks ornate or whatever, but there's no craft in it. I mean, really, it depends who's sculpted it. Obviously, it's been sculpted and there's craft in that, but you can just mass produce these sculptures that look like marble sculptures or whatever. You just machine it all out of. Yeah, I don't know.
But
so there's not the same value attached to it that when someone was doing it by hand, obviously.
is it to do with the quantity then?
I don't know.
How many can be created? Because if you look at like Kmart, and you go in there, they make things look like they're being crafted,
Yeah.
but it's mass produced,
Damn.
and they sort of wobble
I
it
love that word.
somehow,
Such a good word.
Whereas if you have a person who's made a batch or a one-off, then I would see that as craft.
Yeah.
But it's like, at what point, at what number, does it turn into mass production?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky
Super
because
great
you've
line.
also got like potters in Japan who've worked, they've learnt through their families through generations, and they make this one pot or one set of cups, but they've done it for hundreds of years. It's still a craft though, right? And they pump them out, they pump these cups out, but they've done it in the special way that the family's done it for centuries.
Yeah.
So it's kind of mass manufacturing because they're just doing the same thing over and over, but because it's their family way of doing it, or their hands have made it, it's a craft.
Yeah.
So maybe we're actually hitting on the other topic we've been talking about this weekend a little bit, which is a craft have a little bit of romanticism in it?
Yeah.
It has actually a story behind its creation that everyone can understand.
And for those who are proud about those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some people go and buy their cutlery from the Kmart, and some people go to their local cutlery producer who lives on their street, and they go, "Can you do a limited range for me?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right there again, like, it's so, if you're educated about how it's been made or who's made it, then it adds value to that thing. So like, someone who doesn't know about pottery or how wood work, and then just looking at 2 different chairs, like, the same to me. But if you understand it, then you're like, oh, I know who's made this and how they made it and all the work they've put into it. And that definitely adds value, doesn't it?
And we're starting to see a massive rise of makers videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
People who are just making stuff, working with their hands, and some of them are actually selling these objects after they've made them, for huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
But I would call a lot of these people craftsmen.
Oh, definitely.
And I think that they are actually injecting so much story and therefore value into everything they make.
Yeah.
So maybe that's actually part of it, because I'd certainly say your stonemasonry is a craft.
Oh yeah.
And
sure.
it's I'd say you're one of the very few craftsmen I know, because there is a certain romanticism behind what you do. I think you are putting physical effort into creating something beautiful that we can all understand.
And hopefully it stays there for quite a long time.
Yeah, I think so too.
Years, yeah. And then, because the beauty of stone is it doesn't age
Yeah.
quickly. It doesn't.
Gets moss on it.
Yeah. And it was not, and it gets better with age.
Yeah, well, that's
it
the
gets
thing.
weathered. Yeah, you get a bit of moss on it.
Ooh,
Yeah.
baby.
Well,
better.
that's awesome.
But then, and that point as well, when you said that all these makers are craftsmen, that's really, I guess, in some ways hard for me to agree with, because I feel it takes years dedicated to a craft to say that you're a craftsman of it, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's easy for us to say, yeah, these are all crafty people and they're makers,
Yeah.
but is it just a fad of them doing this for a couple of years and then giving up?
Is this the other thing that separates everything, is actually level of skill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, what we're talking about is the separation between arts and crafts and a craftsman.
Yeah.
Arts and crafts is very much a hobby, or what we
Yeah.
associate with a hobby, something part-time. To be called a craft, you expect, you know, I mean, you the thing that comes to mind is someone who's been doing this for 30 years plus.
Mm.
Yeah.
And like, oh no, this is his craft, his lifelong craft.
The 20,000 hours mark.
Yeah,
exactly.
You hear
Yep.
about him like playing guitar and
Yeah.
things like that. Like you have to be a master. You
Mhm.
have to have done 20,000 hours of practice.
I watched this YouTube video of this guy who had had videos from when he had basically learned guitar to when he had done like 10,000 hours, and like he would just like show clips like throughout it, and it was real interesting to see. But he was like at a point, like so many hours, like he was doing like over 3 months. He was basically just playing guitar 8 hours a day to try and get better, to like get hours. But that's when you appreciate that like you can get to like a sort of standard level of like being a really good guitarist or anything probably, but then to like push it to that master level, it's just like such a massive leap. But like it doesn't seem like much. It's like, oh yeah, he's like a bit better at guitar, but actually he's like way better at guitar because of that jump. And I bet that applies to so many things.
Yeah.
Like,
You
people-
say the word better. Is this where that like individual, like you get good at something and then you find how you want to be individual at that thing,
yeah,
and that is
Your
where
style,
you become.
right?
You go from good
yeah,
to like best or better, and you
you've
go like,
honed your own craft, you know.
yeah.
you're like
maybe
pushing the
right.
craft almost, like can I take it to the next level? Like he was like doing some weird
Yeah.
things and playing all.
I think that's also a sign, not just about the end product, but when you watch someone work in a craft, you can see whether they're good at it or not by the way they work.
Yeah,
You'll know this from painting as well, like house painting, with that craft with your father. The way you use your tools,
yeah,
you can see someone's proficiency by the way that they're using their tools. Like say they have a process that they do when they're like, I don't know, for instance, me when I chisel my stone, sometimes I'll flick the hammer under my hand
yeah.
just for fun. It's not because I need to do it,
Probably a bit shown
because I
off,
feel
like-
pretty cool too. You know? Like check this out, flip it around, and there's no point to it.
Yeah,
But you do these little things. You tap it in certain ways. You tap your trowel.
Spinning your pens when you're
Yeah.
sketching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. You've done it for so long that you've spent time with these tools, and it's your muscle memory is like
yeah,
perfected.
yeah.
And it's the same. I imagine it's the same with painting and something. What you do with your paintbrushes, you flick them. I don't know. That's what you do when you paint. So you just flick it.
I
No,
don't
but
think
like
I'm
using
that-
masking tape, like if you're
Yeah.
like chump painter, you get your masking tape out. Good painters don't use masking tape though, or do they?
Well, that's up for debate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call myself like a craftsman painter,
Yeah,
so I wouldn't know. I've
Yeah.
trained with like really good painters, but like I just never reached that level, you know.
Yeah.
I just pursued design afterwards and just
Yeah.
kind of wanted to get back into that.
yeah, sure. I think it's interesting as well, like in terms of us, like as digital artists, it's another thing where it's like this weird, like it definitely craft like invokes like a physicality to it. But in this digital age, like people who make video games and people who program all these amazing things that we have which work, is that a craft? I think it's probably I'd say
Yeah,
argue
I
it's
think you
not
can-
really,
I think
but
you
it's
can
hard
look
to.
at it. I think you can say that what you're doing is like some of digital craft. Like
Yeah,
you're spending hours figuring these programs out and figuring out how to get a good quality image.
yeah,
You might be at the beginning of it, but in 20 years' time, you might have, honed
Yeah.
your craft and be really good at it.
exactly.
That's where I'd like to see a clear difference between art and craft. Because I see craft as 2D and then craft is 3D and art is 2D.
But I see like craft as like it's like an element of functionality, like a purpose to it, but art's more just an expression,
Yeah, like but then there's sculpture which is like smack dab in the middle.
But it's
us
like an
is-
expression, you know what I mean? There's not
Yeah.
there's not a point, there's a point to it, but there's not like, it's not, you don't sell it or whatever.
Yeah, but then I don't know, I see similarities in them because I'm trying to pursue my own artistic craft at the moment, and it's different to stonemasonry craft.
Yeah.
But you're spending hours honing it and the skills. So you're using tools. Yeah, it's more expressive. So maybe it's not what you consider as like a normal craft, but there's obviously crossovers and blurred.
For sure. So like design and art, and all everything. Like is car design art or is
But
engineering or whatever.
Craft possibly like the usability of craft is high, and then the usability of art doesn't necessarily need to be as high. Do you understand that?
No.
Like a crafted piece of wood for a chair leg needs to be crafted in a certain way so that the chair leg is strong.
Yeah, so it works.
Yeah, so it's usable and it functions and it works.
Yeah.
Whereas like a piece of art, it's like you could paint a piece of art and you just look for the buyer.
Yeah.
Or don't look for the buyer. It might not be about that.
Its function is a lot more simple.
Yeah,
it's about providing delight in your life and
an expression of whatever.
Yeah.
It's super broad. Like I guess all the Venn diagrams where they all cross over. What it's called? But I actually know what it's called.
There's a Venn diagram.
Is it?
Yeah, 2 circles.
Yeah, all circles cross over.
Or more circles. Apparently.
Okay.
You can have like but yes. Anyway.
So do we establish that like as an action point, like the craft is usable and art is?
I'd say I think that art is.
No, because I
don't think art's not functional in
my craft
traditional
is
sense.
usable. Oh, I guess the stone wall's pretty.
Yeah.
Is that
pretty simple purpose? Stop someone.
Yeah.
Walking there.
Almost like a building material, you know.
Yeah, true. It does have a function.
I think, and like if you just think of like leather. Someone is making leather goods, like if you made leather goods, but you made a leather art piece, it's like a different thing to like a leather good, and then it's not really you're kind of using your craft, but you're producing art, so you're kind of an artist at that point. I feel like if you're a craftsman, you're building something which is kind of.
And I guess maybe if that's all you see yourself as a craftsman, you can still use that craft to create art.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Use that material and skills.
Yeah, but I think it's like an art. Like if someone made like a beautiful saddle or something like that out of leather, like there was an art to that. But I don't know.
Well, if you like, if you carve out and make a decorative part of the saddle, then maybe there's an element of art to it.
Yeah.
But if it's just raw leather, then it's craft.
Yeah. We should just be the judges on art and craft.
Art. Like Dragon's Den, but for craft.
Yeah, who calls people out on like the craft being crap?
That's an also interesting point about craft. What I experienced with stonemasons, they can be so annoying. Because
we don't want to offend our stonemasonry audience.
Because there's a lot out there. Sorry, I'll phone that back in. No, they are annoying. No, because once you get to a certain level of craft, you think your opinions are right about it.
Yeah.
Every top level craftsman thinks that there's a certain way of doing it because that's the way they do it.
Yeah.
And they look at other people and they can pull it apart. And they're like, oh, well, it's not very good there, is it? It's like, but it doesn't matter too much. Like you're just looking at the intricate details.
But isn't that fair? Because they've spent like 20,000 hours and they've probably tried that, and it's like maybe not the highest quality of way to do it, and they're like, and that person's still selling it that way, and they look at them and frown upon it because they're like, they haven't done their time.
For that. That's rubbish,
I guess it's like that's the thing as well. Is like where it comes into the economics of things as well. Like you're doing a craft, but obviously it's like there's an economic. You're getting paid to do it, and you need to do it at an efficient cost and like price. So like that obviously conflicts with the way that you do your craft. It's not all about like this has to be perfect in the way that I want it.
I still had to learn recently to get faster at it. Like it took me a long time to be able to actually do the work, and now I'm at a level where I'm paying for myself with my time. You've got to be quick at it. You can't just when you're learning though, you have to be slow. You have to be slow, otherwise you don't learn properly.
Yeah.
But then at a certain point you go, right, I need to hurry up and actually make this thing because time is money.
I feel like that sort of idea brings us like kind of nicely onto the point of like general public recognizing and like finding out if they want something to be crafted, by whom and for what reason. Because like they go, I see it all the time, like the footwear industry and things like that, and people go, oh, look at this high quality leather shoe. And I go, there's not leather.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, it's leather. Look at the sole, look how like robust it is. I was like, yeah, but the sole is made using part cardboard mulch and part rubber, so that they can get, they basically cut their rubber down like they do in the cocaine industry.
Yeah.
Like they literally get like a ton of rubber and mix it with 3 ton of sawdust, and it gives them 4 ton of rubber material for the sole. And you go, tell me how good that shoe is in a year's time.
Yeah.
And they go, it didn't last a month.
I'm walking around barefoot.
Yeah.
So you're saying is the general public are idiots?
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Whoa!
The general public is actually your audience. Shit.
So this is the last episode.
The last time you ever bring guests on.
But there's that people have that desirability, and they go, I want like a nice leather pair of shoes, but they're not willing to put the time into actually figuring out who makes them and why they're made well and how they're made well, and then making the choice.
Yeah.
They go, I want a leather pair of shoes. Where's a shoe shop? There's one just down in the mall.
Yeah.
I'll go there.
Yeah.
I guess it's about people. Well, I guess trying to teach people the meaning of quality. I guess.
Yeah, I think there's
It's
always
hard
going to be
to
people
do.
who want to pay, like who have the money and want to pay for like handcrafted things, but and there's always people who don't. I mean, if everything was handcrafted and amazing, there'd be heaps of people who didn't have anything because we didn't make enough shit.
Yeah.
Well, it
So,
would
like-
be like pre-industrial
Yeah,
revolution.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, in terms of the question of is this the end of craft? I think there's always going to be room for it, but
It might not flourish like it used to.
Yeah.
And it's not like these producers actually want to put half sawdust in the soles. Like if they could do it all rubber, they could. But it's like just all these economic pressures.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. It is
And-
the companies
Yeah.
telling the factories.
Yeah.
Like I hear this all the time. They go, so where's Montreal's product made? And I go, it's made in China. And they're like, oh god. So it's crap. I'm like, China's like one of the best manufacturers, if not the best manufacturing country in the world. And they're like, that's not true. Like,
They do quite a lot of it, mate. Like,
look,
What are you wearing? That's made in China. That's made in China. That's made in China. See that car? That's made in China. Yeah.
because like the things that have fallen apart for them and have really
Yeah.
not done well, they've looked for the tag and it says made in China. But instead of blaming the company that ordered the manufacturing processes, they blame the country that made it.
Yeah.
it's made in China, it's cheap and rubbish. It's not their fault.
I think that's like
Manufacturers should be making sure they well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's like back in the 20 years ago, probably when China's manufacturing was becoming established, it probably did make a lot of not as good stuff. But it's just the country's flourished a lot, so people still think they make bad stuff, but actually they make the best stuff in the world, like you say. So it's just as economic factors change, different countries are becoming a lot of manufacturing is actually moving out of China now because it's too expensive, and other countries are cheaper, like India and I don't know where else. Other parts of the world.
Like Indonesia and stuff as well. Yeah.
Because that's how it works. Obviously you move your manufacturing there, the heaps of jobs, the economy rises, and then you can't manufacture there for like dirt cheap anymore, so you go somewhere else.
So I guess this brings it to the question, is this the end of craft? And I guess as economic pressure comes onto these industries, we either have to take shortcuts, introduce a lot of digital technology, digital manufacture, and it does kind of destroy the essence of that craft.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the other day just about jewelry. Jewelry maker, definitely a craft, and now with 3D printing, these people who have spent their whole life learning how to make amazing jewelry, it's like people like us can just obviously whip it up on CAD and press print and put some diamonds in it. Job done.
Is that easy?
And when someone's looking at it, there's this is probably better, it's more perfect or whatever, it's cheaper. So it's just sad to see crafts like that disappear or change at least. But I guess
I think it boils down, is it dead? Is it the end of craft? It doesn't have to be, but I think it's solely based on accountability. Each individual being accountable for the decisions they make, and at any point in time when you make a decision, you can, and if it involves a product or a craft or something, you have the decision to buy something that is made well or not made well.
And there will always be a room for craftsmen. There's a lot of people who would just do a simple fence.
Or fake brick.
Or fake brick, fake wood, but
Don't you get me started on
sorry.
bloody stick on stone.
His face has gone all red for our listeners.
Blood boil.
But yeah, there will always be those people who really appreciate that craft. So it'll never die, which is the nice thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it can evolve though. I think we are sometimes talking about craft as if a craft has to stay the same.
Yeah.
It has to be traditional. It has to be done like they did 100 years ago. It will always evolve and it will always change, and maybe some parts of it might lose quality because of the new techniques or something. And certain ways of doing things will die. But that's just the nature of industries and craft anyway. I think,
you're definitely right. Like, I'm sure 100 years ago people were like, oh, he's using that bloody new hammer. This chump, he's cheating.
Well, like for instance,
my break rocks with my fists.
Look at this guy there with his flash chisels. But it's definitely,
all the tools? Was it
what?
all the gear? No
All the
idea.
gear, well, that still happens. But there's certain parts of the craft I know that it's like, even things that because I've learned from my father how to do it. So certain things that he did as an apprentice when he was younger, he hasn't taught me because there's no point. Like they used when he was learning it in Wales.
He'd be up with rocks.
He'd when it was a snowy day, because the weather is crap obviously.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. They would sit around a fire making their own chisels.
Yeah.
And they would actually craft their own chisels. When they couldn't go outside and work, they'd be making their chisels and using certain techniques to put them in a really high temperature embers and whatever. And then at a certain point, they'd put it they'd wait for it to start cooling and watch the red part of it kind of get down to the tip of the chisel. And as soon as it gets there, dunk it in water so that part was hardened.
Yeah.
And there's
tempering.
Tempering. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. There's no point in him telling me how to do that now because there's hardened steel and tempered steel already.
Yeah.
But it's such a beautiful process that he had to do that, and then he gets even more intimate with his craft because
you invested in that tool and you've made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his craft, he would say that his craft is dead, but the new era of craft is very much alive.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it's an interesting point too, because these people that you're talking about crafting their own chisels around a fire and that, stonemasonry is their life from when they're 16 until they're 80. And that's a rare thing now.
Yeah, I think.
Even for someone to have one career for their entire lives,
Even us who have dabbled in some sort of craft ourselves, we don't do it. We haven't committed our current whole lives to it, have we?
Yeah, you've heard Geoff's story a little bit before, how much we've just changed in 4 years.
Yeah. I wonder as well. I think because of the sort of speed of the world in a way, and you see everything, and it's all just moving so fast that maybe I think there's probably a growing appreciation for craft in a lot of ways as well, because you do, especially as people like us who are makers and things, where you do see something where it's whoa, this is super, a lot of work's went into this, is beautiful. You do appreciate that, and I think probably more people, you could be, craft is probably booming. I don't know. I wonder if what the trend is, but I'm sure there's a lot. People can just make stuff and sell it online now in a way that they could never do that in the past. Mm-hmm. So I think there probably is actually a growing, appreciation for craft now.
But I think that's it. And we've talked about on the podcast a little bit before, but Primitive Technology is one of the largest YouTube channels out there. Have you guys seen it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's so cool.
And it's almost therapeutic to watch, right?
Yeah, because it simplifies things.
Yeah, but it's also utterly relatable.
Yeah.
So that craft of what he's doing, everyone who's watching is quite convinced that they could do it themselves. I understand how to do that. I understand how that works, and it's
because the process is so simple.
Yep.
It's not, but you can see it. You can relate to, here's clay. If I shape it like that with my hands,
It makes a bowl.
Done. Brick, easy.
Yeah, brick, whatever.
yeah.
I think you've got to keep up with the times, though. I mean, that's essential as a craftsman. You've got to like see what the new age of people in your craft, what they're doing and using, and decide whether or not that is something that you can incorporate into your craft.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like seeing if like maybe it's trying a new technology, trying a new tool, trying a new technique, and if it works, it works. Like you should be open to developing it into your system. If it doesn't, then you can, keep moving forward.
Yeah.
But it's having the open mind, and I feel like that can sometimes, and we touched on it before, sometimes stop a craftsman from proceeding and from really like making waves. Is that they just get stuck in their they started woodwork in 1940 and they only use 1940s technology, and that's whereas they should have really evolved, like Madonna, like every 10 years she likes up with the play, and she's
it's a
like
great analogy.
she's actually 10 years younger.
Where's your cone bra? We're doing
Making it cutting edge.
Yeah. That's what I think of when I think of Madonna.
Yeah.
Absolute craftsman. Or craftsman.
What a craftsman.
I thought you were going to say cone bra.
Oh, yeah.
I guess that. Yeah, well, I think that's, in a roundabout way, a pretty holistic discussion about craft.
Yeah,
Is there anything else that sort of comes to mind?
Nah.
Pretty much covered, haven't we?
Done that one.
Done?
Yeah.
Okay, we can close the book on that one.
Yeah, I think if the listeners have anything to add, then they should totally, email in or something, eh?
Yep,
Yeah,
they can
put
do
in
that.
comments. YouTube comments.
YouTube comments.
You can be our first commenter.
Yep. We will comment back. We've got no time for anything else. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
Thanks
for
for
being
our
here.
guest,
It's been
Virginia.
fun. Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks everyone. See you next week.
Bye.